It's Amazfit. I don't know. Welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Amazfit T-Rex Pro. It's a weird name, but it's kind of a cool watch. The brand Amazfit has actually been around for a while, even though you might not have heard of them before. They've had a couple of devices in the past, like something called the Stratos and the Amazfit BIP, that have done pretty well for them. However, the Amazfit T-Rex Pro is something new from them and has a few cool features that we're going to be looking at today. Before we dive in though, if you find this video helpful or educational or fun, make sure you give me a thumbs up down below and consider subscribing so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. Also, if you find this thing interesting and you decide to pick one up, I will have links in the description that do help support my channel, but they cost nothing extra to you. And in full disclosure, no one sent me this watch. This is not a sponsored video, and I bought this watch with my own hard-earned money, so I have no incentive to give this thing a good review. With that out of the way, let's take a look at the Amazfit T-Rex Pro. Just looking at the box of this thing, you can tell it's kind of designed for that outdoor enthusiast or tactical crowd. And if you flip the box on its side, you can see that it's got a military spec for build and water resistance. It's got precise positioning with GPS. It's got water resistance up to 100 meters, and it's got a built-in barometer, compass, and altimeter, which is kind of surprising at the price point this thing falls into. We'll talk about price later on in this video. That's enough with the box. This isn't very exciting. Let's take a look at the watch. I've been wearing the Amazfit T-Rex Pro for about 2 weeks now, so I've got a pretty good feel for what's going on with it. I've been wearing it day in, day out, to sleep, everything, to really get a full review of this thing and be able to tell you what it's all about. The first thing you'll likely notice about the Amazfit T-Rex Pro is the display. It's actually got a 1.3-inch AMOLED display, which is super vibrant and bright. And as you can see, it is a touch interface, so you can swipe around the screen to do various actions. The screen just went black. That's because this is a AMOLED device and it doesn't have an always-on display. However, you can put it in always-on mode like it is right now, and it'll tell you the time of day all the time. The screen never goes black in this mode. Another nice feature is that during an activity like running or hiking, you can activate always-on mode in those situations as well, so the screen never goes black and you can always see your data on the fly. However, setting it to always-on will take a toll on battery life. In terms of display brightness, where you're actually out using this thing, it's actually pretty good. In anything but direct sunlight, this display is bright enough to see at a glance without an issue. If you are in really bright direct sunlight, there is a bit of a struggle, but if you angle your wrist the right way, it's really not that bad, and it's totally acceptable for a watch like this. But on top of the touch interface, it does have a full set of buttons that you can use to do everything on the watch. You don't always have to use the touch interface, which is a really nice thing, because sometimes if you've got sweaty fingers or something, if it's raining out, it's really hard to use a touch display. And I gotta say, it is a very responsive menu. Everything is very fluid. It's very pleasing to the eye. It's really nice to use. This AMOLED display is housed in an all-plastic construction, and as you can see, it's got a very kind of like a G-Shock look to it. It's very tactical and kind of military looking. I mean, it is pretty cool looking, and I do like the blue steel color that I got, but it's definitely a more aggressive design. This watch is a 48mm diameter, and it's about 13.5mm thick, so it's definitely on the larger spectrum for watches. And for a quick size comparison with some Garmin watches that I have, we've got the Garmin Instinct Solar here, we've got the Garmin Venu 2 that just came out last week here, and we've also got the Garmin Fenix 6S here on the end. And you can see that the Garmin Instinct Solar and the Amazfit T-Rex Pro actually look very similar. The case design is very similar. They're both all plastic. Of course, the T-Rex Pro has a way nicer display. And when we flip the watch over, you can see that there's optical heart rate sensor on the back and also an SpO2 sensor for that blood oxygen saturation level. We'll talk about accuracy of this a little bit later on in this video. The Amazfit T-Rex Pro comes with this included Cradle charger, which is actually standard to the Amazfit brand. This is a very simple charging cradle, and it clicks onto the back with a magnet, and it's good to go. Going back to the user interface now, we can see that the home screen or watch face is fully customizable. If I just touch and hold the watch face, it'll bring up various watch faces that you can swipe through and pick different ones as you please. What's nice about this is that there's actually hundreds to choose from in the Amazfit ZEPP app. Like I said before, the user interface on the Amazfit T-Rex Pro is actually really fluid. It's very easy to use and it's very customizable. From the watch face, you can simply swipe down to enter into like the widget mode. And from here, you can get an idea of your steps for the day and all of your activity. You can also swipe down again to get to your weather, which is really nice. If you click on that, you can dive even deeper into the weather. Next up, we've got our steps widget, and you can see here I've only got 1200 for the day because it's still pretty early and haven't gone for my run yet. There's also a heart rate widget for all-day heart rate monitoring. Below the heart rate widget, we have an SpO2 widget, and you can click on this to measure your blood oxygen saturation level. This gives you some simple instructions on where to wear the watch, and then you can start measuring. And below the SpO2 widget, you've got the VO2 max and training load widget, and this is actually pretty interesting and not something you find in a price category like this. You can see here it's got my estimated VO2 max showing here. This does seem a little bit off compared to some of the other devices I have, but it is cool to see that it's actually featured on this watch. Next to VO2 max, we've got my recovery time for my recent runs listed as 32 hours. And swiping over again, we've got my training load in optimal at 855. These are really valuable tools to have for training, and it's something you don't typically find in a price category like this. And then below the VO2 max widget, we've also got my last workout. That's a run from yesterday. In a workout summary page that shows a little map for your run, you've got your distance, your workout time, and all of your other stats listed below that. And from the watch face, if you swipe left, you also get your phone's notifications here. You can see here's some Strava notifications and emails. And then swiping right drops you into the main menu. And there's a lot to choose from in here. You can see we've got Pi, heart rate, SpO2, workout, workout records, workout status, stress, activity goal, weather, alarm clock, compass, barometer, timer, stopwatch, events, music controls, find my phone, notifications, and settings. Something I was not expecting to find on the Amazfit T-Rex Pro is actually a find my phone feature. That's something I use all the time on my Garmin watch. You can click the button. My phone's vibrating, but you probably can't hear it. Something I use all the time. I wish all the brands had this. Like I said, there are music controls on the Amazfit T-Rex Pro. There is no offline music storage on the watch itself. This is simply to control the music on your phone from your watch, so you don't have to dig it from your backpack or whatever. All right, let's talk about the activities you can track on the Amazfit T-Rex Pro. Well, you can track anything. Seriously, there's actually a hysterical amount of activity profiles built into the Amazfit T-Rex Pro. You've obviously got everything from running, to trail running, to treadmill running, to cycling, to pool swimming, to outdoor swimming, to hiking, elliptical, soccer, but there's some weird ones in here. We've got hula hooping, frisbee, darts, kites, tug of war. That's an important profile to have. And shuttlecock kicking, I don't even know what that is. We've also got square dancing, ballroom dancing, belly dancing, ballet, street dancing, Zumba. There's a lot to choose from. Basically, if you're doing an activity that you can't find in this watch, you've got a pretty unique activity. The thing is though, these are just carbon copies of the same activity. They've basically copy and pasted the activity 100 times, gave them different icons and gave them different names, but there's really nothing special about them individually. In terms of battery life, it's kind of a variable with the Amazfit T-Rex Pro. The company claims up to 20 days in standby or smartwatch mode and up to 40 hours with GPS turned on. However, there's a lot of variables there because of the always-on display and different brightness levels you can control on the screen itself. If you've got that brightness maxed out, you're not going to get 20 hours of GPS on time. In my experience so far, it's been pretty good. It's definitely better than a lot of the other AMOLED watches out there. I've had this for a couple of weeks, and I think I can comfortably get about 5 days with running every day and also using the always-on display, which is pretty good. And in doing a 2-hour long run the other day, I noticed that the battery dropped by about 10%. So that's to say I could get about 20 hours of use depending how many times the screen turns on. In terms of navigation features, if you're hoping for that, because this is kind of designed for the outdoor enthusiast, the Amazfit T-Rex Pro doesn't really have any. You cannot follow a course, you can't upload a GPX file and follow that. There's no breadcrumb mapping, nothing like that. However, there is a compass and altimeter built in, so using those tools with a paper map could get you by in a pinch. Now let's talk about the companion smartphone app for the Amazfit T-Rex Pro. This app is called ZEPP, Z-E-P-P. I don't know why it's called Amazfit, but it's called ZEPP. It is what it is. This app is actually pretty well polished. It looks really nice. It's got all of your data laid out pretty smoothly on the front page here. You can see at the top, I've got my steps for the day. I've got my sleep from last night at 7.2 hours. I've got my calories burned. And then I've got my heart rate graph, my stress, and my Pi score for the day, my sleep score, my streak for activities, and below that you've got a bunch of other data that doesn't really apply unless you have some of their other products like smart scales and treadmills and stuff like that. If I drop into my activities, you can see past activities from the past few days. Here I can click on any activity like a trail run from the other day. Then I can see a map of my trail run. I can zoom in on it. I can see the pace depending on the heat map. You've got a pace graph, you've got your laps, your heart rate data, your altitude data, your cadence, your stride, aerobic training effort, and aerobic training effect. There's a ton of data here. One pretty big bummer about the smartphone app is that there's no way to export all of this data in like a fit file. You can click up in the corner here and export a track, but this is actually a GPX format and doesn't include the heart rate data or any of the other stuff like cadence. And another thing I noticed is that if you do a treadmill run like I have here, if I try to export this data, there's no choice for exporting anything. I can only export an image of my activity. So I can't get any of my data out of this app unless I sync with Strava. Now, if you sync with Strava, all of your activities will go straight over to Strava, and it's really easy to use. It's very seamless, and the integration seems pretty reliable. The only downside I found with the Strava integration with the Amazfit is that it does send over the treadmill data with your heart rate and stuff, but it doesn't actually send over the distance from your treadmill run. It'll simply say 0 miles over the course of an hour with a certain heart rate, but there's no distance there, and you can't actually go in and edit it because Strava doesn't let you do that. Okay, let's talk about what could arguably be the most important feature of any fitness tracker, and that is accuracy. In terms of wellness tracking, I found that the steps and sleep data coming from the Amazfit T-Rex Pro were actually pretty good. The sleep data was on par with my Whoop Band 3.0 and with my Garmin Fenix 6S within a few minutes. Actually, it was kind of surprising. The sleep stages weren't exactly the same, but the overall sleep duration was pretty similar to the other devices. In terms of step count per day, I was actually pretty shocked with this one too, because the Amazfit T-Rex Pro was within a few steps of my Garmin Fenix 6S on a given day. Even on a day where I had like 22,000 steps, the Amazfit T-Rex Pro was really close to the Garmin Fenix 6S there. So it seems like in general wellness tracking, the Amazfit T-Rex Pro does a pretty decent job. In terms of activity tracking accuracy, the Amazfit T-Rex Pro was almost bang on with treadmill distance and accuracy. I was pretty shocked with that one. I took it out of the box, went on a treadmill run with no calibration, and it got almost 5 miles exactly when my treadmill was reading exactly 5 miles. So that's pretty good. In terms of overall GPS accuracy with the Amazfit T-Rex Pro, again, it did pretty good here. It was very comparable to my Garmin Fenix 6S and Garmin Forerunner 945, which I typically use as a baseline for comparison. In heavy tree cover trail running, it wasn't perfect, but overall, totally acceptable. There weren't like huge red flags in any particular points of the GPS tracks that I've done so far. And I'm assuming that Amazfit is using the same Sony GPS chipset that a lot of the competition is using as well, and that's why it's so similar to all the other devices. And finally, let's talk about heart rate accuracy from the Amazfit T-Rex Pro from the optical heart rate sensor on the back of the device. Unfortunately, this is where the Amazfit T-Rex Pro fell flat on its face. It was really bad on just about every activity that I've tracked so far. What's interesting is that it does come up to speed pretty well with most of my other devices, including chest straps and armbands that I've tested with it. But in situations where I'm doing intervals, so I get my heart rate up to 160 beats per minute, and then I drop it back down to a walking pace and my heart rate drops down to like 90, the Amazfit T-Rex Pro just completely ignores that dip in heart rate, and it just kind of made a straight line across that gap. I tried tightening the band down super tight, I tried moving it further up on my wrist. Nothing helps this thing. It just doesn't perform in terms of heart rate accuracy. And the unfortunate thing is you can't actually pair an external heart rate sensor like a chest strap or an armband to the T-Rex Pro to fix this problem, so you kind of just have to expect to get bad heart rate data out of this thing all the time. And that brings us to the final topic of the Amazfit T-Rex Pro, and that's going to be the price of this thing. The Amazfit T-Rex Pro comes in at $179, which is pretty amazing for this Amazfit. That was a bad joke. For instance, I've got the Garmin Venu 2 here that just released a couple of weeks ago. This is $399, and it features most of the same things that the Amazfit T-Rex Pro has. You can see here that they both have brilliant AMOLED displays, they're both very responsive, they're both really nice looking if you're into this sort of watch, and generally speaking, performance on the Amazfit T-Rex Pro is pretty good except for heart rate accuracy. And on top of that, the smartphone app is actually pretty polished and easy to use as well, and we've got Strava integration, which is always nice to see. So would I recommend the Amazfit T-Rex Pro to somebody? Maybe? I don't know. At that $180 price point, we've got watches like the Coros Pace 2 out there for $199, which is probably a better sports tracker because it gives you external sensor support like heart rate sensor, Bluetooth, Ant+, all that stuff. The Coros Pace 2 also has better battery life. That's something to keep in mind as well. But it does not have a brilliant AMOLED display like the Amazfit T-Rex Pro here, and it's kind of designed for different people. While the outside design of the Amazfit T-Rex Pro is designed for that outdoor enthusiast, the guts of it really aren't weren't designed for that purpose. It's more of an Apple Watch alternative than like something like a Garmin Fenix 6 alternative. Yeah, so would I recommend it? Maybe at $180 if you're looking for an AMOLED watch that's really nice to look at and it's got this kind of rugged look to it. This might be for you, but if accuracy and activity performance is more important to you, I'd say there's probably better options on the market, like the Coros Pace 2 or even the Garmin Forerunner 245. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. I just want to show you the Amazfit T-Rex Pro and what I think about it so far, and I want to hear from you. Are you interested in the Amazfit T-Rex Pro? If so, why? Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, while you're down there, definitely make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. If you are interested in purchasing an Amazfit T-Rex Pro, there will be links down in the description that do help support this channel, but they cost nothing extra to you. Okay, I'm done now, bye.